Joined now by Travis Perry. Appreciate you joining us for a Boiler Upload. I was talking about the Boilers earlier as they finish their European tour. Of course, football season coming up as well. Indiana's football team, I've talked to Travis and I said, brother, I've got a little idea, which is weird, but in Purdue, not in a terribly different situation. They've got a new coach. And they lost their quarterback. So a lot of changes for the Boilers as well on the football side. How are things looking for Purdue, first of all, Travis? And thanks for joining us from Boiler Upload.
Not a problem. Not a problem. It is looking very interesting. I think from what I've seen so far with Purdue, it's a lot of guys that are new to the system, that new parts, but they have a lot of talent. And how far Purdue goes this year depends on how all of that comes together. They got a definite quarterback. They got a really good one in Hudson Card from Texas. A lot of people are saying he was the best quarterback that was in the transfer portal. And he was starting at Texas before Quinn Ewers took over the job. And then, of course, they got Arch Manning. So he saw he was going to be second at best, maybe third, and decided to come out and go to a place where he knew he was going to start. So he is taking command of the offense and the receiving room. He wants to spread it around. They want to do a kind of a modified air raid. So there's a lot of talent at receiver, just not a lot of proven production so far. And then in the secondary, they've brought in a bunch of transfers. On the defense, they brought in a bunch of different transfers. So it's guys that have experience. They have, they've got a lot of recruiting stars from their previous stops. But how's it all going to come together? That's the biggest question, I think, for Purdue.
I understand. The other day when I was talking with the defensive backs for Indiana, one was from – oh, no, these are the running backs. I apologize. One was from Wake Forest. One was from Stanford, I believe. Texas. It's the same thing. I'm like, okay, no idea here. But Indiana has Jalen Lucas, all-American returning, and Josh Henderson. So they've got that. But, yeah, it's the unknowns with all these new faces in this transfer portal for all these teams that I'm like going, I don't know. And for Indiana, I don't know who the quarterback is going to be right now. Is Purdue set at quarterback?
Yes, it is going to be Hudson Card. He's been the guy pretty much since he arrived on campus. They do have a second transfer from Arizona State. I think his name is Bennett Meredith, who has looked pretty good in practice, but it's Hudson Card's show. The only other guy on the roster, I believe, that's thrown a collegiate pass is wide receiver Abdur Rahman Yassin. And he threw that in the bowl game, which I believe by some definitions was a football game against LSU. But the final score certainly did not indicate that it was a game of any sort.
Yeah, well, I completely understand. We see that happen so many times. And Purdue losing Jeff Brom was huge. Not something that I didn't expect. I actually expected it before the first time around. So the fact that he decided to not do that Purdue and stay was great. But man, when you lose, it's like Indiana when they lost Kalen DeBoer. To me, that was the loss of losses. He is now the current head coach at Washington, back in the Big Ten. But yeah, the coaching and the continuity for both of these programs is always something to talk about. But Purdue has always done well in football. Their facilities are superb now. They have got an incredible, I guess, indoor facility. That facility, does that contain everything? The weight room, the indoor workouts, all of that?
Yeah, the Kosich facility is it was like a $65 million investment that they did. They attached it to the existing indoor practice facility with the Mollenkopf. They got a few outdoor practice fields with it. And kind of the big thing that they added this year is they took out a section of Ross-Ade Stadium, and there will be a tunnel from the facility onto the field underneath the street there. So They've got that connection now. They don't have to walk around down the hill, down by Mackey Arena through. I mean, they just cut off a bunch of. It was a long route to the locker room, honestly. So now that they've got that, that's kind of the last part of that whole facility there, and that's looking pretty good. And then we'll get to see the new south end zone this year that they've added as part of the renovation. That's going to look really nice as well.
Yeah, Purdue has put a lot of money into the football program. They made a lot of commitment. Of course, I think Jeff Brom may have been the impetus for a lot of that, but also just doing what you have to do to keep up with in life in the Big Ten or college sports in general. And they have done that. They have great facilities. They are modernizing their stadium, great press box with the suites. And I mentioned all this because I've been talking about this a lot for Indiana, that they have got to do. The stadium itself is fine. It's their press boxes from like 1968. And it spans like between the 30 and the 30, maybe, where most of these go end to end. But there's just a couple of suites in there. And I'm like, they have got to build these and get these suites for the revenue generators and turn it into that, which ironically, a survey was set out that I just received today. We talked about it yesterday. I had the athletics director, Scott Dolson, on that was coming out, that they're asking about modernizing that. But Purdue already doing that. So they're ahead of the game. And now I think the programs have to have that stuff, but that's not what the players are even looking at anymore because of NIL and all of those things. How has Purdue been faring in football specifically for NIL?
That's a real question. I mean, they've got the Boilermaker Alliance, which helps set up and organize a bunch of that, and they help them with appearances and have them get out and whatnot. But as far as like merchandise and whatnot, I've just kind of seen like some early T-shirts, or you can get your customized jersey, basic things like that. So we haven't seen a lot of information on, what the numbers are, what each player is getting. I just know the biggest one was they were throwing around seven figures to get Zach Edey to come back for this coming season. And that apparently was a major factor in him withdrawing from the NBA draft. Is he could have made more money at Purdue than he could have as a second round pick without a guaranteed contract.
I said that to so many people when Trace Jackson Davis got his contract and some of it 2 years of it guaranteed. I said that doesn't happen. He was the 57th pick. That does not happen. Most guys don't get guaranteed contracts in the second round draft pick. So, and Zach Edey said he has a guaranteed contract right now. Why would you walk away from that? And I think that he knew that the NBA is going to be there. He wanted one more year with a team that he knows that he can probably win with. Last year, they had the pieces, but they were not ready. I've talked about that a lot. Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, while extraordinarily good players who are going to get better and probably are better, were not good enough. You have to have elite guards to win, especially at the national level, and those guys weren't there yet. That's probably going to change.
And see, I'm still kind of upset. I'm putting on my fan hat here now when I talk, but that game in Columbus was a disaster. And I maybe this is me being elitist or everything, but if you are a number one seed with the National Player of the Year, there is no valid excuse for you to lose to a 16 seed. None whatsoever. And it was kind of a perfect storm for what happened to Purdue in that game. As you said, the guards were not good. They struggled. They struggled to hit anything from outside. Fairleigh Dickinson did everything they could to deny Zach Edey the ball. And, Edey still got his numbers, but I don't believe he took a shot in the last 9 minutes of the game. And I think you just saw a team that got tight, and Fairleigh Dickinson was able to keep it close. They made Purdue shoot from outside. They couldn't get anything going from outside. They kept the score low, kind of dragged it into a rock fight, and then they hit a few big shots down the stretch. And, it was a slow motion disaster in the making, honestly. And when Purdue was not able to, I think they had a run there early in the second half that they built the lead out to about 6 or 7. And that's usually okay, we're the bigger seed, we're taking over the smaller seed. The Cinderella story is done now. And when Purdue could not build further on that, that's when you knew they were in trouble. And it's such a bittersweet ending to what was a great season. I mean, they spent 7 weeks at number one. They won the Big Ten by 3 games. They won 29 games. They won the Big Ten tournament. Just a fantastic year overall. They were not expected to win the Big Ten, but you top that off with what I think is the worst loss in NCAA tournament history. And it just leaves such a sour note. And it's one that, unfortunately, what they accomplish this coming season, where they will be very good again. I think they are the Big Ten favorite. I think they can earn another number one seed. They will be judged by what happens in March. And not only because of losing to Fairleigh Dickinson, but losing to St. Peter's as a 15 seed, losing to North Texas as a 13 seed. That is where this team is going to be judged going forward. And whether that is fair or not, that is the case right now. They have proven that they can be dominant in the Big Ten. Will they get it done when it matters most in March? And that's what's going to be the ultimate decider for them.
Yeah, they're my favorite now. Early on, I was 1A and 1B with Michigan State, but Purdue will be my clear favorite going into the season this year because of they're old. You've got guys like Trey Kaufman-Renn, who I was talking to a friend last night, who said that he was watching the games in Europe and that he was just knocking them down. And I know they played a lot without Edey, which is the best thing for Purdue to do, because that allows them to not rely on him and have to rely on these other guys and put them in the position that they need to be. But the age of these guys, they have got, now that your guards are sophomores, you've gone through a brutal freshman year where they was put through the fire. That's going to be an incredible experience. They're playing over in Europe. They played over in Europe against those guys. And then you've got Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn, Mason Gillis. I know the roster of Purdue as well as anybody else as far as name, because they've been there long enough. And that's something Purdue has that is extraordinarily unusual. Indiana has 6 new faces this year. Purdue has what, 1?
And they've got a couple more than that. They really have 4, honestly.
4?
Yeah, they've got Wilberg, who's coming out of red shirt, which, surprise, another 7-foot center. I don't know how much he's going to play because of Edey, because of Trey Kaufman-Renn, because of First. But he's a guy that he's probably going to see a few minutes. And he is a center a little bit more like a Matt Harms that can step out and shoot. He's got more range than that. He'll play a little bit further from the basket than Edey. But again, I don't know how much he's going to play this year. And then you have Camden Heide coming out of redshirt. He had a solid European trip. And he's a guy that can play on the edge. He can play on the wing. And that's really Purdue's biggest question is the 3. Can they have a guy that can be a shooter from the 3, that can rebound, that can put the ball on the floor? And Heide might be that guy. And if he's not, they've got Miles Colvin out of Indianapolis, the son of Roosevelt Colvin. And people think very highly of him. He had a solid European trip, showed that he can shoot it. And then you have the 4th newcomer is Lance Jones, who was a 4-year starter at Southern Illinois. He's coming in as a grad transfer. He's kind of going to fill that David Jenkins Jr. role, backup point guard, backup shooting guard, guy that can score from all over, play some defense, do a little bit of everything. And like you said, they're old. Yeah, he's a newcomer to the program. He's got 4 years of college basketball experience. And that's a guy you're going to be able to bring off the bench and play, 5, 10, 15 minutes a night, and he can contribute. So, I mean, I think that's going to be very interesting. One of the things that Matt Painter has to struggle with is how do you give guys enough minutes? I mean, you only have 200 minutes a night to spread around, and you got a team that can go 9 or 10 deep, because even Brian Waddell, a guy that didn't play a lot last year, son of Matt Waddell, he had a fantastic European trip and is looking tremendously athletic. He is really bulked up. He could play that 3 spot. So
You just made
who
me feel
knows?
extraordinarily old. Holy crap. Matt Waddell has a kid playing in college. Oh, gee whiz.